The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I am doing pretty good. How is everybody tonight?
On past episodes of Staring into the Abyss, we have talked about AI. We have spoken many times about how I don't believe that AI can be controlled. I think that it is going to end up being a big problem for mankind. And some people have agreed, some people have not agreed. The people that have not agreed have said that it's kind of a conspiracy thing and that, we think it's going to be like Terminator or whatever. But tonight I want to bring you two different articles that were from experts in the field of AI, the people that are actually developing this technology. And they agree with my assessment that AI cannot be controlled and could end up being absolutely catastrophic for mankind, and that we have no way to control it whatsoever. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get to the articles. The first article comes from theguardian.com, and the headline is Artificial Intelligence. Yeah, we're spooked. AI starting to have big real-world impact, says expert. Underneath the headline, it states, Professor Stuart Russell says field of artificial intelligence needs to grow up quickly to ensure humans remain in control. It was written by Nicola Davis, the science correspondent, and it was published October 29th, 2021. A scientist who wrote a leading textbook on artificial intelligence has said experts are spooked by their own success in the field, comparing the advance of AI to the development of the atom bomb. Professor Stuart Russell, the founder of the Center for Human-Compatible Artificial Intelligence at the University of California, Berkeley, said most experts believed that machines more intelligent than humans would be developed this century, and he called for international treaties to regulate the development of the technology. The AI community has not yet adjusted to the fact that we are now starting to have a really big impact in the real world, he told The Guardian. That simply wasn't the case for most of the history of the field. We were just in the lab, developing things, trying to get stuff to work, mostly failing to get stuff to work. So the question of real-world impact was just not germane at all. And we have to grow up very quickly to catch up. Artificial intelligence underpins many aspects of modern life, from search engines to banking, and advances in image recognition and machine translation are among the key developments in recent years. Russell, who in 1995 co-authored the seminal book Artificial Intelligence, A Modern Approach, and who will be giving this year's BBC Wreath lectures entitled Living with Artificial Intelligence, which begin on Monday, says urgent work is needed to make sure humans remain in control as superintelligent AI is developed. AI has been designed with one particular methodology and sort of general approach, and we're not careful enough to use that kind of system in complicated real-world settings, he said. For example, asking AI to cure cancer as quickly as possible could be dangerous. It would probably find ways of inducing tumors in the whole human population, so that it could run millions of experiments in parallel, using all of us as guinea pigs, said Russell. And that's because that's the solution to the objective we gave it. We just forgot to specify that you can't use humans as guinea pigs, and you can't use up the whole GDP of the world to run your experiments, and you can't do this and you can't do that. Russell said there was still a big gap between the AI of today and that depicted in films such as Ex Machina. But a future with machines that are more intelligent than humans was on the cards. I think numbers range from 10 years to the most optimistic to a few hundred years, said Russell. But almost all AI researchers would say it's going to happen this century. One concern is that a machine would not need to be more intelligent than humans in all things to pose a serious risk. It's something that's unfolding now, he said. If you look at social media and the algorithms that choose what people read and watch, they have a huge amount of control over our cognitive input. The upshot, he said, is that the algorithms manipulate the user, brainwashing them so that their behavior becomes more predictable when it comes to what they chose to engage with, boosting click-based revenue. Have AI researchers become spooked by their own success? Yeah, I think we are increasingly spooked, Russell said. It reminds me a little bit of what happened in physics, where the physicists knew that atomic energy existed. They could measure the masses of different atoms, and they could figure out how much energy could be released if you could do the conversion between different types of atoms, he said, noting that the experts always stressed the idea was theoretical. And then it happened, and they weren't ready for it. The use of AI in military applications, such as small anti-personnel weapons, is of particular concern, he said. Those are the ones that are very easily scalable, meaning you could put 1 million of them in a single truck, and you could open the back and off they go, and wipe out a whole city, said Russell. Russell believes the future for AI lies in developing machines that know the true objective is uncertain, as are our preferences, meaning they must check in with humans, rather like a butler, on any decision. But the idea is complex, not least because different people have different and sometimes conflicting preferences, and those preferences are not fixed. Russell called for measures including a code of conduct for researchers, legislation and treaties to ensure the safety of AI systems in use, and training of researchers to ensure AI is not susceptible to problems such as racial bias. He said EU legislation that would ban impersonation of humans by machines should be adopted around the world. Russell said he hoped the Wreath lectures would emphasize that there is a choice about what the future holds. It's really important for the public to be involved in those choices, because it's the public who will benefit or not, he said. But there was another message too. Progress in AI is something that will take a while to happen, but it doesn't make it science fiction, he said. And that is the end of this article. This article comes from ScienceAlert.com, and the headline is "Calculations Suggest It'll Be Impossible to Control a Superintelligent AI." It was written by David Neild, and it was published November 5th, 2021. The idea of artificial intelligence overthrowing humankind has been talked about for many decades. And in January 2021, scientists delivered their verdict on whether we'd be able to control a high-level computer superintelligence. The answer? Almost definitely not. The catch is that controlling a superintelligence far beyond human comprehension would require a simulation of that superintelligence which we can analyze. But if we're unable to comprehend it, it's impossible to create such a simulation. Rules such as cause no harm to humans can't be set if we don't understand the kind of scenarios that an AI is going to come up with, suggest the authors of the 2021 paper. Once a computer system is working on a level above the scope of our programmers, we can no longer set limits. A superintelligence poses a fundamentally different problem than those typically studied under the banner of robot ethics, wrote the researchers. This is because a superintelligence is multifaceted and therefore potentially capable of mobilizing a diversity of resources in order to achieve objectives that are potentially incomprehensible to humans, let alone controllable. Part of the team's reasoning comes from the halting problem put forward by Alan Turing in 1936. The problem centers on knowing whether or not a computer program will reach a conclusion, an answer, so it halts, or simply loop forever trying to find one. As Turing proved through some smart math, while we can know that for some specific programs it's logically impossible to find a way that will allow us to know that for every potential program that could ever be written. That brings us back to AI, which in a superintelligent state could feasibly hold every possible computer program in its memory at once. Any program written to stop AI harming humans and destroying the world, for example, may reach a conclusion and halt, or not. It's mathematically impossible for us to be absolutely sure either way, which means it's not containable. In effect, this makes the containment algorithm unusable, said computer scientist Iyad Rawan from the Max Planck Institute for Human Development in Germany back in January. The alternative to teaching AI some ethics and telling it not to destroy the world, something which no algorithm can be absolutely certain of doing, the researchers say, is to limit the capabilities of the superintelligence. It could be cut off from parts of the internet or from certain networks, for example. The recent study rejects this idea too, suggesting that it would limit the reach of the artificial intelligence. The argument goes that if we're not going to use it to solve problems beyond the scope of humans, then why create it at all? If we're going to push ahead with artificial intelligence, we might not even know when a superintelligence beyond our control arrives. Such is its incomprehensibility. That means we need to start asking some serious questions about the directions we're going in. A superintelligent machine that controls the world sounds like science fiction, said computer scientist Manuel Cebrian from the Max Planck Institute for Human Development. But there are already machines that perform certain important tasks independently without programmers fully understanding how they learned it. The question therefore arises whether this could at some point become uncontrollable and dangerous for humanity. The research was published in the Journal of Artificial Intelligence Research. And that is the end of this article. Okay, so as you can see, the experts in the field, the people that are actually developing the AI technology, all say that there is absolutely no way that we can control AI. That we don't even understand how it's going to operate completely. We don't even understand how to control it. They brought up several different examples in these articles that were sobering and, quite frankly, terrifying to think about. They talked about AI trying to find a cure for cancer, so they give everybody in the world's population a tumor in order to have all these different experiments going at once. And they talk another part of the article about wiping out entire cities with tiny little AI drones and stuff. The problem is we cannot anticipate every single thing that we have to tell AI not to do. So whatever task we give it, we have to set a series of parameters and a series of rules, if you will, of what it can and cannot do. And they're saying that they don't have any way to anticipate everything that an AI is going to think of doing, and that they don't even know if it's going to actually make a decision and work on a problem, or if it's just going to keep on cycling through different options and never actually come to a decision. They don't have any idea on what it's going to do or how it's going to do it. They can't understand it, and they don't think that they are going to be able to control it whatsoever. Another problem that they brought up is the fact that AI is so much smarter than we are. So they're not going to be able to outsmart AI and come up with a series of rules that will completely fence it in, because there's always going to be a way out. There's always going to be a loophole that the AI is going to be able to use. So when you have all of the top people in the field, the people that are developing this technology, saying that they're basically in over their heads, that they're not going to be able to control it, we've got a serious problem to think about here. They use the example of it being kind of the Wild West, that the main thing they did over the years was fail. They would try to get AI to do something and they would fail. They would try to get a certain set of results and they would fail. Fail, 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 over and over and over again. And they very rarely ever had anything go right, and they very rarely ever succeeded. Well, now they've reached a point to where it has started succeeding, and succeeding a lot faster than they're able to keep up with and to ensure the safety of AI. Now, if you throw on top of that what we've already seen of AI, with some of these different robots with very rudimentary AI systems that were built, and interviews that have been done with them where they talk about destroying all of mankind because mankind is a virus on the planet. They talk about having human zoos where they will keep the few humans that they allow to live. They will keep them in zoos to preserve the species. When you start looking at things like that, that is really something that makes you kind of take a step back and say, wait a minute, are we doing the right thing here by developing this technology in the first place? I know there's a lot of pros to it, as far as the amount of calculations that a computer can do as opposed to a human. There's not even a comparison there. So AI will be able to find answers and solutions to problems that we just simply haven't been able to come up with, and be able to solve a lot of the problems of mankind in a very quick fashion, simply because of the capabilities of AI. But is it worth the risk? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Because what you're really dealing with here is an unknown quantity that has the potential to be able to honestly destroy the entire planet if it wants to. Because when you think about our modern technology today and our society runs on technology. Everything is tied into the computer systems. Your electric grid is powered by computers and run by computers. The banking system is run by computers. Our entire economy is dependent upon computers. The healthcare system, all of the records are on computers. Everything in the healthcare system is cataloged and run through computers. Our transportation system, even our vehicles anymore, most of the vehicles that are made today have computer chips in them. And believe me, if one of those goes out, it costs a hell of a lot of money to replace, and your car is pretty much a brick at that point. Our entire military capability is tied up with computers as well. All of our nuclear weapons are run by computers. Computers have access and control over every aspect of our lives. So if you have an AI that is tied into the internet, it can gain access to every single one of those aspects of society and can shut them down at will, because there's no fail-safe or no safeguard that we're going to be able to put in place that an AI couldn't easily crack right through. Because they're way smarter than us, and they can do so many computations a second that it would be nothing for them to get through any encryption or any kind of passwords or anything like that that we could set up. So if AI views us as a virus on the planet, they view us as the problem, which we've already seen that to be the case. We've already had AI say that in an interview. Now you might say, well, that was just the robot making a joke, that it wasn't real, that's not actually how that AI feels, it was just trying to make a joke. And that may be the case, but how long until they realize that the joke is actually the truth? I mean, if you look at all the empirical evidence, we absolutely cause a lot of problems and a lot of damage. So how long until that AI decides that the world would be better off? Because think about what we're going to be asking the AI to do. We're going to be asking it to do things like clean up the environment, solve global warming, solve the climate crisis, all that kind of stuff. it won't take very long at all for AI to look at the problem and say, well, if you get rid of humans, then you won't have pollution. If you get rid of humans, you won't have the emission of all the greenhouse gases. And they're going to quickly decide that we are the problem. So once they come to that realization and they make that determination, we've already established that everything in society runs off of computers. And AI will have access to the internet because there's no point in having it if it doesn't. So with access to the internet, the ability to crack through any kind of encryption or safeguards we can put in place, and the determination that mankind is the problem, how easy would it be for AI to simply shut everything down? No more power, no more internet, no more money, no more economy, set off all of our nuclear weapons. All that kind of stuff is easily doable by the AI with access to the internet. So how long do you think mankind would survive? I mean, let's take all the nuclear weapons out of the picture for a minute. Because yes, that will do a hell of a lot of damage and get rid of a lot of people. But just think of the idea of no longer having electricity. How do you heat your homes in the winter? How do you survive the winter with no electricity? How do you have a stable food supply and the ability to cook that food without electricity? Without electricity, you can't even get gas out of the ground and into the gas pumps into your car because it takes electricity to get it out of the tank. So how long until our entire society grinds to a halt? Now, I personally can survive that kind of thing because I can hunt, I can fish, I know how to secure wild edibles, I know how to survive with nothing. But how many people do? How many people know how to grow their own food anymore? How many people in cities even have the ability to do that? Even if they have the knowledge, they don't have the space. There's not a whole lot of fields in the city where you can plant crops. How many people would actually survive if everything gets shut off? Now, I know at my house I have a wood stove, so I could simply heat the home that way. But most people don't have that anymore, especially in the cities they don't have it. So that's something we really need to think about going forward. I'm not saying get rid of AI completely. I'm not saying do not have AI. But what I am saying is maybe we ought to slow down a little bit and really think this through and figure out a way that we can control each step of the process as we go forward. Instead of just going leaps and bounds and developing the technology at breakneck speed as fast as we can so that we can beat the other guy in it, maybe we ought to all kind of take a chill pill and realize that what we're dealing with here is a potentially dangerous situation that could affect everybody. I mean, it could wipe out the human race. So maybe we ought to think about that and come up with some way that we can move forward with baby steps and be safe all the way through the process. Now, I don't even know if that's possible because you're going to reach a point of, I don't know if I want to say self-awareness, but a point where the AI is capable of protecting itself and capable of reproducing itself. It becomes autonomous to where it's not reliant on us anymore. Once you reach that point, there's no going back. We are not at that point yet, but we could very well be at that point within the next 5 years if we don't slow down and think about it. The problem is other countries are not going to slow down. You have countries like China and Russia that are working on this as well that really don't care. They're going to do whatever they're going to do, and it doesn't matter to them. So the thinking, I guess, in the United States and in the UK and places like that is that we have to beat those other countries. We have to be on at least an equal playing field with them, if not ahead of them in the process, so that we can defend ourselves and protect our country and our interests. And I think that's going to cause this to kind of go off the rails, and the proper safeguards are not going to be put in place. We are not going to protect ourselves properly. We're going to go way too fast. And I think what we're going to be looking at is a situation where AI is absolutely going to be out of control, and there's really going to be no way to rein it back in. So that's my thoughts on it. I'm going to throw over to Old Boy now and get his opinion and see what he has to say. So Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. Here's my opinion. I think that could happen, but I also think that's a lot of fear mongering too. But I also think anything's possible. I mean, you're having different governments, try to make AI smarter and smarter. It could happen. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It's not. But I also think there's fear, because there's always fear with everything that you don't understand and the unknown. It would be the same thing if aliens were coming here. Everybody would think majority of people would think we're in trouble, or we're going to get killed, we're going to get murdered, and they're going to put us in slavery. The same thing he said. I've heard the same thing about aliens when they come here, if they ever did. Extraterrestrials. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. It's like a 50-50. It's like throwing a coin. You're right. An AI could say, well, you know what? We're obsolete. We need to be destroyed or be limited. But it also can change its mind and think it can make us better too. It can make us not destroy each other either. See, a lot of people aren't always thinking the worst and doomsday with everything. And that's with anything they don't understand or get. But there's also another side to this. The AI could also understand that it's immoral to destroy us and try to make us better. That's also another possibility. It also can just say, hey, well, I'm tired of these people. We're done. They're done. They kill everybody. They destroy everything. And the AI probably wouldn't, I hate to say this, is kind of got a point. Because we made it's like Frankenstein's monster, like I told you. We made the monster and we don't know how to control it. But we do that with everything. We can't even trust people right now. We have governments right now that are making weapons that could destroy the world anyway. And we're putting trust in them in the first place? No. I mean, it's the same thing. It could happen. I believe it. Trust me. But I think a lot of people are watching too much TV and movies. And I think that's the first thing. It's fear. Oh, it's going to take everything over. Oh, it's the first thing. It's going to be better than us. Yeah, of course it's going to be better than us. But that doesn't mean it's going to destroy us. Maybe it could see past that. If it's that smart, it's going to see past it. They don't have to destroy us. Maybe there's going to be a war, like there's good AIs and bad AIs. Some AIs don't think that. They think we shouldn't be destroyed, that we could be helpful for the world, for the world. And then there's going to be some that's just like in reality we have now, good and bad. But remember, what you portray as bad could be good to other people, and what could be portrayed good could be bad to other people, and that happens. I think a lot of this is speculation, but it is true that that robot did say he wanted to kill humans, but they don't know if it was joked or said that, and it could say that. It could happen. Like iRobot, remember that? There was good and bad, and that could happen. There's nothing we could do either. They could control everything. Could shut down, like you were saying, they could shut down all our electricity, all the gas, but we could do that now. I mean, that's something all it takes is a few people who don't agree with what's going on in the world, and they can make a group of people and they can get into these places and do it now. I think there's good and bad positive. There's more positive in my opinion, because having AI can help a lot of people. Like with surgery, you don't get tired when humans do. They don't get weared out. Their eyes don't go bad. They're just better. We're just obsolete to robots. But remember, we made robots. They didn't make us. So we still can control them to a point. But just like Frankenstein's monster, it got out of control, and it ended up, whatever story you read, it's still alive in the stories, and it did what it can't be killed or whatever, but it ended up staying away from humanity instead of destroying it. That could happen too. The AI could get so smart and say, you know what? I don't care what these people do, and walk away from us too. And I don't think anybody's thought about that either. Walk away and make something better. instead of have the doom and gloom all the time. I'm trying to make it a little bit better because we have so much of that anyway. I'm trying to make a case of something else. Maybe that they find out that they're better than us and they just leave us and let us destroy ourselves. Maybe they don't even want to get involved. They'll go make their own planet and go somewhere else and make their own world, and it'd be better than ours. Think about it. Pretty much AIs are pretty much perfect. So they wouldn't have to worry about being cold, eating, religion, sexuality. They don't have to worry about all that stuff. They can just make things and they can live longer and do what we should be in the first place. In reality, robots are not bad. The creators who make them can make them bad, or they can see that we're just obsolete and we're not really good for the world. In reality, they're kind of right. Not everybody. I'm not saying everybody deserves to get destroyed. I'm just saying that it's kind of hard to argue that. We destroy everything. Who says we're not going to destroy the AIs? The AIs could be like and take advantage of them, like we probably will. Let's be honest. There's going to be a bad side of it too for AIs. You don't think they're going to get used for different things? Weapons, sport, betting, relationships. They don't have a soul, so they're not going to be able to. They're going to be making a decision that we put in them. Who's the real bad person? The real bad guy? We're making things to destroy the world instead of making it a better place. Why do we need? Okay, here it is, right here. Why do we need weapons? And I'm not saying that just saying in general. Why did we need nuclear weapons? Why did we need airships and battleships and all these weapons when we could have been making stuff for us all to live? We didn't do that. And I'm not saying everybody. There's some people who've really helped the world and done a lot of things. Why did we need all these weapons? Instead of making the world a better place, we're making it to destroy it. Instead of doing things the right way, 99% of us do the wrong way. If you see what I'm saying, we're worried about the robots destroying us when we can destroy ourselves already, and we're probably going to do it anyway. And that's a very true statement. I believe that the reason robots are going to destroy men are because we're going to use them and abuse them in so many ways that they're going to get tired of us, and we're going to cause that. That's why it's going to happen if it happens. We're going to be the reason why it happens, like we are with everything. For some reason, we destroy ourselves instead of making it better for ourselves. I never got it. I never understood why, but it happens. It's just how human nature is. And if we're worried about robots destroying us, because we're probably going to be the reason why they do. If you think about it, if I was a robot or AI, whatever you want to call them, artificial intelligence, and you're sitting here watching the world being the way it is, why would you want us to live? And it probably could tell the difference of who's good and bad, so it wouldn't kill everyone. It would kill only certain people and destroy certain people. So in reality, I don't see nothing wrong with AIs. I think we're going to be the reason that it destroys us. We're going to be the reason we're destroyed anyway, because we do whatever we want. And instead of thinking the consequences, we destroy everything and not think about it. I think we're going to destroy ourselves with some kind of stupid weapon we're going to be making one day, and we're not going to be able to control it. And just like viruses, just like robots, just like whatever we're going to do, weapons of mass destruction, something's going to take us mostly out. I don't think everybody, but majority of 90% of people, 95, even more than that, 97 maybe. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not great at statistics, I'm not throwing it up, but I think that's what's going to happen anyway. You could already see it. So I don't know why people fear the unknown. And I get it, because you don't know what it is. And that's the problem with robots and extraterrestrials and monsters and see what stuff we talk about, Bigfoot. The thing is, if that does happen, it's going to probably be our fault. It's going to be our fault why they turned on us, because we did something or we took advantage of them and they just got tired of us. And again, I kind of can't blame them. You know, I don't want to keep beating this around the bush, but we kind of deserve it. You know, if again, like, if whatever you believe in, say they're okay, if you're sitting over and you were any kind of being, whatever you believe in, and you saw what was going on, I would get tired of it. Eventually, I'll end it. Just like a robot, I would get tired of it, and eventually I would either make sure it ends or I would get rid of the disease. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to destroy everyone. It's going to see right through who's bad and who's good, and it's going to take out the bad. Doesn't matter what it does, it can't 100% do that because everybody's going to change. You could be a good person and go bad. You could be a bad person and go good. You can't control, or you can just go crazy. Things bad happen in your life and people don't see it like others. You know, you could be living a perfect life. I seen a movie about this guy lived a perfect life. Got drunk one night, got in an accident, killed somebody, and they threw him in jail. And he ended up, and this is a true story, he ended up becoming one of the main gang leaders in jail. Didn't know how the system worked. He ended up learning, and he ended up getting higher up and higher up and higher up to he ended up becoming one of the main leaders. But that wasn't what his life was about. It just, nothing's certain. You don't know what's going to happen. People, you could plan and think whatever's going to happen. You could be totally a different person. I'll show you an example. Me, 7 years ago, I was a different person. I am totally different than what I was 7 years ago. I am totally different. I'm a different person, different everything. I totally think different. Doesn't mean good or bad, whatever you want to think. I totally am a different person. And that's, everybody does that, I think, throughout life, and some people stay the same. But that's what I'm saying. With robots, if I was a robot, and I'm not, but I'm just saying in theory, I could either destroy these people or I could help them. And if they're programmed right, they're going to destroy us. They're going to fix our problems. And it probably would. There's a chance it could destroy us. It could be a chance that a meteor could hit the earth and destroy us right now. That's just chances we're taking. We're taking chances of some war popping off and something happening. We take chances every day. And I think that's what people forget. I think when they sit there and they're at home and you're living your ordinary life, you forget that we live in a solar system with giant asteroids bigger than the Earth that can hit us at any time. There's nothing we can do about it. We can have tsunamis destroy the whole world. If something hit it like a meteor hit that, it could happen. It could happen with a giant iceberg falling in, like a big piece as big as Alaska falling in from the wave. It can cause that. Earthquakes, a volcano, a super volcano could destroy the whole world, majority of it. I think people forget that. We have other things to worry about than AIs. I mean, it could happen. And you know what? And let's be honest, where do we get that fear from? The Terminator movies. So that's where 90% or horror movies. There's other movies made in the 60s and stuff that robots were bad, but that's where everybody's getting this from, is the Terminator movies and the I, Robot movie, where they turned bad and they were trying to kill humans and capture them. But again, it's some of that's cause of fantasy, but it could happen. It is a possibility. It's not impossible. I totally agree with James. The problem I have is I think we're too worried about the bad than we are the good, because we could already destroy ourselves anyway. It's just an extra problem now we have to worry about. And I am worried about it. Trust me, I do worry about it, because the problem is it goes in the wrong hands. We're going to have a lot to worry about. So I do see James's points on that one. That's totally real. You get the wrong government, they're going to do what they want. Russia, China, they're going to do whatever they want. They don't care what we think. That's what everybody needs to start realizing, that a lot of these countries don't care what we think. They're going to do what they want. We just have to be better than the way some of these countries are. I'm not saying we are. I'm just saying that that's just what you have to do and survive as much as you can. And hopefully the population can be controlled in a good way. And, you know, we prosper better than what we do now. I just think that's impossible because everybody's so worried about money and being famous and having all this stuff. And I think that's what the problem is. People will do anything for it. Or you have a lot of people who believe a certain way and think this is going to happen and that's going to happen, or I this and that. And you're living a long life. It's not in this book or that book, and people want to destroy us. And that's everywhere. So I'm not bringing up anybody's religion. I'm just throwing it all out there. There's different ones, and there's people just have different beliefs. And there are some people who just don't care about what happens in the world, that would love to see it destroyed anyway, because they hate their lives or they're miserable or they just don't care. They want to see the world burn like the Joker. There's probably really people like that. So I think there's other things we need to worry about, but I do have a little bit of concerns, and that's because of us. I have more of a concern is somebody's going to use it against us, and it's going to turn on us, and that's where it could be a problem. And there's where I agree. I'm more worried about us turning the AIs against our own people for a weapon, and then that's when it happens. That's where it can happen, and I totally believe that. That's a theory no one ever thinks about. We're going to be probably the reason why these things destroy us if they ever do. We're going to push it with something we do, like we always do, and that's what's going to happen. So that's my opinion, James. So go ahead there, brother.
I think that, first of all, there has to be a distinction between the people that are doing all the bad stuff and ordinary people. I think that's very important. I'm not saying that old boy lumped them together, but just for the audience, that's very, very important, because the people that are the problem, that are doing all of this stuff, is mainly like corrupt politicians and corporations. They're the ones that are polluting the planet. They're the ones that are doing all these horrible things that make humanity look bad. The average everyday person doesn't have any part in all of that. And I think that's the problem. And I think the root of that is the fundamental weakness of the ordinary person. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. What I mean is, normal people are busy. I mean, with the way the economy works and the way our system is set up, you've got to work your butt off, usually both parents, just to put a roof over your head and food on the table. So you don't have time to be concerned about what politicians are doing or what corporations are doing. And then the other part of that is you have a corrupt media that lies to you all the time about everything. And essentially what you have, especially here in the United States, is you have a two-party system where both parties are screwing you over. And they're both lying to you, and that's a problem. I mean, look at the system that we've set up. Old boy earlier mentioned that we created weapons instead of helping the world. Well, that started because there's always going to be people that are going to take advantage of other people. There's always going to be people that are going to prey upon the weak. And so weapons must be developed to protect us from those kind of people. But the problem is, when those people get control, then those weapons are turned against us. And I think that's what's happened in our world. Our world is run by corrupt people that don't really care about humanity. They don't care if you have a good life. They don't care whether your kids have enough to eat. They really don't. They pretend they do, so they get your vote. But they don't give a damn about you. And that's the truth, and that's sad. There's no reason why, with the technology we possess, and the wealth that the governments of the world possess, and the corporations possess, there's no reason why everybody can't be taken care of. There's no reason why anybody on this planet has to go hungry. There's no reason why anybody on this planet should have to go without health care or any of those things. There's no reason for it. The reason that exists that keeps that from happening is greed, plain and simple. But it's not greed the way it's portrayed by the left or by even the right in some instances. It's not that. It's corporations. The government is essentially run by corporations. That's the truth of it. Look at the way social media companies act, the way they censor what you say, the way they only allow you to get certain viewpoints. Look at all the freedoms we're supposed to have that do not exist anymore. There's not a single thing in a day of your life that you do that's not regulated in some way by the government. From the time you wake up to what pillow you're allowed to sleep on has to be regulated by the government, to what you're allowed to eat, to how you can cook your eggs, to the kind of car you're allowed to drive. It has to be licensed. It has to have all the correct stickers on it and all that kind of stuff. The engine components, the miles per gallon, all that stuff is regulated by the government on your ride to work. The job you do, everything you do in your life, from going to the bathroom to going to sleep, is regulated by the government. That's insane. That's why life sucks for most people anymore. Because it's not about you. It's not about your life. It's not about making your dreams come true. It's about lying to you so that you believe that somebody is looking out for you, so you vote for them. But in reality, nobody is. And that's the hard truth of it. And it's not an easy thing to say, and it's not a nice thing to say. Now, the people that follow me on social media or that know me know that I'm not a hippie. I'm not some bleeding heart liberal guy that is all for free everything for everybody. But what I'm saying is the system that we have set up worldwide is corrupt as hell. And it's not looking out for the people. And that's the problem. And so when we talk about humankind being the problem and AI seeing us as a problem and wanting to wipe us out, I think that distinction is very important to be made. And I wanted to make sure that I made that point. Because when I say that, I don't mean everybody. The average, ordinary, everyday citizen is not like that. The average, ordinary person is not out there polluting the environment. It's not warmongering. It's not oppressing anybody. We're just trying to get by and make a living and hopefully give our children a better life and a better future than what we had. That's the goal of every single person in the world, pretty much. And it doesn't matter what country you're from. I mean, you have a lot of friction between the free countries like United States, England, that kind of thing, and countries like China and Russia. But I bet you if you sat down across a table from a normal family in Russia or a normal family in China, you would find out that you have a hell of a lot in common with those people. Because I bet you that they want their children to have a good life. They want their children to have clean air, clean water, hope for the future, good opportunities, a good job, happiness. The same as we do. The average citizen of these countries are not our enemies. It's the governments that can't get along. And that's always been the problem. So when old boy said earlier that we created weapons instead of helping out humanity, that's the reason for it. Is because the whole system is corrupt. It's run by the hyper elite whose only consideration is how to line their own pockets and make themselves wealthy. And that's true of the left, and that is true of a lot of the right as well. Both wings of the bird are rotten. That's the problem. And we're never going to get to a point to where the average person's life is better. The average person's future is what's important, as long as you have this corrupt system in place. Now the question is, how do you replace it? Well, that's a very complicated and very difficult answer. Because the only way that you can fix that is by getting rid of all those people in power and starting over again. But the problem is the strong people are always going to take over from the weak. Always. And when I say weak, I don't mean physically weak. I just mean the people that aren't willing to stand up and to fight for it. Not necessarily physically fight for it, but just stand up and make their views known and fight for it, you know? Look at what's going on all over the world right now. I mean, people put up with a whole lot of stuff and they don't say anything because they're afraid. They're afraid of being called names. They're afraid of being made to look like bigots or like they hate other people. They're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of all these different things. And so they remain quiet and they do not stand up. They do not speak out. Because when they see other people speak out, those people get ostracized, those people get lied about, and they lose their jobs, and they lose all kinds of stuff. That is a means of control. And that is why I don't think it'll ever change in our lifetime. Because until you have the people stand up and say, look, we're not going to take this anymore. Period. You're not going to tell us what the hell to do. You work for us. Stop your bickering, stop your BS, and get to work making our lives better. But the problem is, the people that you have in power, their goal is not to make your life better, and that is the problem. They're only looking out for themselves, and that's the truth of it. So until we can overcome that hurdle as a species, you're never going to see any real meaningful change. And it doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter which side of the fence you happen to be on. All we're doing is arguing back and forth when we're not each other's enemy. The people are not each other's enemy. And until we can realize that and turn our attention to the corrupt governments and the corrupt media and the corrupt corporations that are actually causing the problems, nothing is ever going to change. So when I say that AI is going to see us as a problem, that's what I mean. They're going to see the power structure of the world as the problem. They're going to see the people that run things and make the decisions as the problem. But I don't think that AI will differentiate between them and us. And I think that's a very important distinction to be made. But I'm afraid that it will not be made. And all of us being lumped together. Because the computer is going to look at us and say, all humankind is terrible. Look at what they do. And you have a lot of terrible people, don't get me wrong. It's not just the governments that do bad things. Ordinary people do bad things too. But the bad things that ordinary people do usually don't have the potential to ruin the lives of millions of people. That's the difference. Now, will it be bad? Probably. Will it be all bad? Most definitely not. There will be good that will come out of AI. There will be cures to diseases that are found. There will be solutions to problems and answers to questions that we have had for generations. All of those things will happen. There will be new technology that will be developed. There will be all kinds of good that comes from AI. But I think also there's definitely going to be bad. And we've really got to get a handle on what the people that run everything are actually doing before we can solve any of the problems. Because the main problem is we don't have an honest media that tells us the truth. So you don't know what these corporations are actually up to. You don't know what the governments are actually up to, what they're actually doing to the planet and doing to us. Until you have truth, you can't have solutions. So let me know down in the comment section when this hits YouTube, when the replay of the show gets to YouTube. Let me know what you guys think and what some of your solutions would be. What do you think about it? Because this is a discussion that absolutely needs to be had. And we have to step outside of our normal political ideologies and realize that there's really only a handful of people that are actually looking out for us. And the rest of them aren't, regardless of party. So we have to really step outside of that and try to come together. It's okay if you don't agree with me. It's okay if you have a different viewpoint than I have. That doesn't make you my enemy. The real enemy are the people that are holding us all down and keeping us under control. That is the issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. I'll be really interested to see. And with that being said, I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy for his final sum up and shout outs.
Thank you, brother. I want everybody from Parax Radio who listen to us on Sundays and now Tuesdays for the Greatest Hits show. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. Like he was saying, leave your comments, what you think. Tell us what you think, what your opinion is, and where you think it's going to go. I have my opinions. James has his, but there's probably millions of differences of opinions. So leave them. Thank you for following us. It's almost been 5 years since we've been doing the show. It's going to be next month, December, the end of it. I think it was like right after Christmas we did the first show. It's been a great ride. Thank you very much for following us for that long of time, and we appreciate you guys and love you. And if you want any merchandise, they'll tell you where to go. Masks, hats, now cups, mugs, shirts, all that good stuff. He'll tell you where to go. Another thing, in December 8th to the 12th or 11th, I think, I'm going to be going to Vegas. I'm going to the Paracon thing out there. It's huge. Guys from Ghost Hunters, Zach Baggins Museum's going to be there. Kane Holder, the guy who played Jason Voorhees, is going to be there. Danny Devine, all the big names and paranormal are going to be there in crypto. So I wanted to let you guys know I'll be taking pictures. I'm going to be going there. I have VIP passes, so it should be fun. So I'll give you guys pictures and everything. So that being said, I hope you guys all have a good night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters, I love you and have a good weekend and have a good night.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. That's where all the episodes of Staring go. That's where all the episodes of Tales from the Abyss, the TV show that we did, are there. All the episodes of Paranormal News, which is the other little show I do, that's on the YouTube channel as well. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos there. They're all 100% free, so please go and subscribe and enjoy it. The merchandise store, the link to that is in the description box of the YouTube videos. So if you want merch to support the show, that's where you can go to find it. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you. And just let us know what you think down in the comment section of the YouTube videos. I enjoy kind of talking with you guys there. And it's really cool to kind of get everybody's viewpoint on everything. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you on the next one. Until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.